Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Intellectual Agrarian Podcast, where we talk philosophy from the farm. I'm your host, Terrence Leahy. Today's topic is one that is near and dear to my heart, a subject of endless discussion and endless evasion. It's everyone's favorite, work. To talk about work and how it plays into farm life, or rather is farm life at times, is my good friend Aaron Blick. He's a farmer of more years than his age makes you think, and the production manager of Crestwood Family Farms in Woodstock, Illinois. Together, we'll talk about our first jobs, the work ethic in today's culture, and so much more. Hello, Aaron. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, T, for having me again.
Now, Aaron's the perfect person to talk about this topic with me because he and I have both had to work together, and so that really somehow gives us credence to talk about this. But before we get too far underway,
That's right.
Aaron, I want to share with you something that I decided to do because, I need to save money like everyone else, and so I figured the best way for me to do that was every time I mention Joel Salatin on the show, I have to put a quarter or a coin of some kind, money, in the Joel Salatin jar. So every now and again, if I talk about Joel Salatin and you don't hear, remind me that I have to put something in the jar.
Sounds good. Hey, you got to make money somehow.
That's right. Now, recently I learned that my first non-agricultural job at the library was because of my farming background. I was just talking to one of them and they said, oh yeah, when we were going to hire you, I thought to myself, he's from a farm family. That means he can actually work. I was kind of curious, is this something you've experienced where other people are like, oh, you're on a farm, so you know how to do something?
Yes, very much so. A lot of times, depending on the job, a lot of times it comes, you tell someone, you're like, oh yeah, I came from a farming background and, went down the road of starting my own farm and, the long hours and put in the work that needs to get done. And you're like, oh, that's awesome. That's great. Hey, I got a position for you. Or people when they find out that, oh, you did farming or you've done farming in the past. Great. I have a harder job for you. So I have definitely experienced that firsthand for sure.
So what do you think it is that gives them this idea that we have this overdeveloped work ethic? I mean, growing up, for me at least, that's the status quo. You work, you have to. There's no other option.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to me. I think a lot of it has to do with how I was raised, for one. I grew up from until I was about 17 in a small farming community, lived in town, 3,000 people or whatever. But it was still the mentality of I had friends who just got a weekly allowance because they lived in the house. Whereas for me, I didn't get paid unless I went out and actually, or earned money unless I went out and actually earned money. A
lot of parents teaching their kids communism at a young age.
That's right. What is this? And so I think from a young age, I think it was 12 or 13, my brother and we would start mowing lawns. And so, it was from a young age, it was money just doesn't appear, and it just doesn't, I just don't have it in my bank account. I have to actually earn it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think early on, that was how I was raised. It was, you have to earn it. But then also with farming too, I think the mentality there that people, like you're saying, oh, you'll be great at this, or you'll do a lot of hard work for us, is because it is hard work. People they like to see the, surfacey stuff. Oh, look, there's a picture of somebody out petting a calf in a field, or, oh, there's a chicken and the guy's holding the egg, stuff like that. Oh, it's fluffy and fun. It's actually it's dirty and smelly sometimes, and long hours in the season, and sometimes just not a whole lot of fun, but it's still enjoyable.
Exactly. It's not the Snoopy prancing through the field with the bunnies dancing around him. It's not always quite that easy. Although, as we know, you do have that occasional habit of going out into the field and dancing with the cows, but one of these days we just need to get on YouTube.
That's right. Exactly. We should do that.
I mean, I know for me, work began at a young age. I mean, I don't remember a time in my childhood where I did not have to earn it, which obviously has gotten me to the point where I am today. But I remember having a real job before I was done with high school when I was like 10 or 13. And that was working at the apple orchard. Can you share with the audience what your first job was? Like your first real job?
Yeah, so my first real job, my brother and I, we started out, like I said, mowing lawns. And we did that for quite a few years. And we had not like a mowing business, but we had, quite a few lawns that we do until I was about 14 or 15. And I actually then started working in my dad's full-time business. And we would actually go out, and he had a propane business that delivers to farms and houses in the country and stuff. And so we would actually, in the summertime, our job was we would go out and go to different locations and paint the propane tanks.
I guess I never thought someone has to paint those tanks.
Yes, exactly, and I have done it, unfortunately. So that was my very first real job. Was and I think now looking back on it, I think it was a really good first job for me to have, especially with my makeup, I guess you could say. Is we were somewhat of a structure for, like, here's your route and get as many done as you can in a day, but it has to be no less than like 8. And so for me, it was like, okay, I'm being forced into this role of, you have to take charge of your day and make sure that you're timing everything properly, and you're managing your time, and not just, I can take 4 hours on one tank and 4 hours on the next. My 8-hour day's done, and hey, I did good. It's a thing of like, okay, how long does it take us to do one tank, and how fast can we get it done to where we don't have to not take lunch because we're way behind. So I think for my first job, that was perfect for my makeup, because I'm the type where I like structure, and I like managing my time to my best ability. So yeah, so that was my first real job, and it was a very good first job, I will say.
My first job, I worked at the apple orchard. I got this job by accident. I was going back from a morning meeting with my dad at the church, and he got a phone call from Paul Norton, the gentleman who we actually had on our last podcast episode. And he basically said, hey, we're short a hand. Can T come over and help? Now, I know this will shock you, but I wasn't given much choice of whether or not I was going there or not. My father basically just drove me to the orchard, dropped me off, and said, I'll come back for you when the day is over. And so I'm just like standing there. I still have like my Bible in hand going, what the heck am I supposed to be doing?
What did you just do to me?
Abandoned here in the middle of nowhere. There are people and tractors. Right. Well, and then I talked with Paul, and Paul basically just stuck me in the cart corral, where people would give a $5, what's that word, retainer, basically, to take a cart out, and a place for them to put their apples, etc., small children if they decide they wanted to stop walking. And I basically just stood there at the cart corral for about 8 hours. Well, at least it felt like 8 hours. It was probably closer to 5 or 6.
Right.
And it was an interesting experience. I learned how to make almost $5 increments out of any large bill I was given, because, of course, these are all Chicago people, and they carry nothing but 20s. And I stand there and I spent the day learning just how to kind of smile, which at the time was a little bit more of a difficulty for me. I was the introverted bookworm at the time, folks. It wasn't a pretty picture. But that job was the first step in the road that led me to doing this. And I have to tell you, it was an experience I won't forget. All of a sudden, someone brought me out a hot dog for lunch. I mean, hey, it was great. Got a hat out of it.
Right.
It was an experience, and I appreciate it, because if I hadn't done that, then I wouldn't have gotten to here. Even if it was just dropping me out in the middle of nowhere. So it's these are the type of jobs that kind of make us who we are eventually, I guess. It's those little baby steps in the long road to our possible completion. I don't know about you, but I'm not finished yet. So
no, not at all.
Getting to another part. So we started working at a young age, right? Well, a lot of kids today don't. And I don't know about you, but I hear a lot even about talking about my generation. And, of course, my father is one of the ones that says it most, but millennials, this generation, we're just not the best workers.
Right.
And, of course, if that's what we're saying about my generation, I have no idea what they're going to say about the next one. Do you think this is because a lot of them didn't start working at a young age? They've kind of been raised in the semi-communistic household where living gives you the right to expect something?
Yes. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned it. I think it does, and I think it's a generational thing too. I think, my parents, my grandparents, my grandpa, both my grandparents were World War II era type men, and actually were in the military. And then my dad, early 60s. And I think for them, it's a little bit different where, my grandpa, I would say, worked to almost too much, workaholic type mentality. But that's what you had to do to survive. I remember talking to him, and it was 3 jobs, but 1 full-time and 2 part-time jobs, that he would do. And it's just ridiculous, but that's what they had to do to survive, because the 1 full-time job wasn't doing it. Or when my grandpa and his father were starting the business my dad owns now, he had to work the full-time job that they were starting and work 2 part-time jobs to keep afloat. And I think for my dad, he saw that, and of course, the work ethic went to him. Not so much of the kind of the workaholic side of things, and then it was passed on to me, and a healthy dose of work ethic, to where it's one, you're not just going to get a handout, and you shouldn't expect a handout. But I think maybe where the breakdown might be, and correct me if I'm totally wrong in my thinking, but it might be the fact that from the generation of guys that were in World War II to their kids were, hey, I didn't like that I didn't get an allowance, and I didn't like that I never saw my dad or whatever. So with their kids, they're like, I want to do the exact opposite. I want to give them an allowance and give them money and, spend as much time with them, as I can, which that's not a problem. But the part of, okay, so when are you actually showing them a work ethic of, hey, we got to mow the lawn. We have to take care of the house, and we have to, clean up around the house. There's those different things that you have to do when you are, adult and living.
I think you're absolutely right in that. I've seen it in my own family with the cousins, or if you're listening, my cousins, I do all love you. But just you see that kind of progression over the generations. Even if you look at any historical dynasty you kind of want to look at, the Rockefellers is a good one to look at. I mean, if you look at the generation now, they're nowhere near as hardy, let's say, as the original Rockefeller family were. And you can see that even in a lot of farm families. I think you kind of see that too, which is sad to say. A lot of them, they
Yep.
look at dad only worked, and
Yep.
they say,
Yep.
you know, I don't want to just spend my entire life doing that. And so they go for these city jobs, which is all well and good in most cases, but they kind of don't, sometimes they just don't get the idea of what hard work is. They think that because they've done X, Y, or Z schooling, then everything else is just going to fall into place. Life's going to be great. When I graduate, I get a degree. When I was at the Moses Conference this last weekend, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine. And it's just, that's not the way the world works. I mean, I joke about it being semi-communistic when you just give your kids money, which, not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but at the same token, you need to train them to understand what the value of money and wealth is. One of my favorite stories was of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. Their children were not given allowances. They had to, what their system was, they gave their children each a plot of land, and they had them raise the vegetables for the castle lunchroom or whatever you want to call it. And their father would weigh the vegetables, he would inspect them, and he would pay them according to market value.
Wow.
And that became their allowances. Impressive. I mean, look at that. That's the type of thing that makes a good leader and gives a good generation a leg up in the next generation. Because without that work, without the understanding of what work is, you're not going to be equipped to be able to do any work of your own in the future. You're going to be constantly falling back on the work of the previous generation, which one could say we're doing a little bit too much in the United States these days. We talk about the greatest generation, World War II, and the baby boomers did a lot, but Gen X wasn't exactly as productive as the previous generations. We haven't had to kind of go through as much, I guess. Really, as you're saying, most of these guys did it out of necessity, not because they necessarily wanted to. And we don't blame them. We're human. We don't want to work to superhuman efforts, but necessity is the mother of industry.
Right. Yeah, I can't remember where or the number, but I think our generation is spending the most time at college or university than any other generation.
I can believe it.
That, you know, it's not so much of, you know, high school and then 2-year, go to college for 2 years and then go out into the workforce, or just high school, go out in the workforce, or just even a 4-year degree, go out to the workforce. Now it's 4-year degree, and then I'm gonna go get my master's, and then I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna go and switch and do kind of go down this road for a degree. And I think, you know, and maybe I'm totally wrong again, but I think part of that might be because of a work ethic. You know, schooling is no easy road to go down. That's not what I'm saying, but my thinking is, you know, is it the work ethic of, you know, I don't know what it's like to have a job, so it's scary to actually then go and get a job.
Exactly.
You know, I don't know.
It truly is, and we can't sit here and try to say that we know everything or we can solve the world's problems by simply making everyone work. That leads to dark roads in which many Eastern countries have to go through these days. So, it doesn't hurt to make your kids work a little bit. And Joel Salatin, one thing that he talked about at a conference I was at, the Mother News Fair last year, was that he and his children, he kind of started them out with their own little enterprises early on in childhood. Right. And then they've done that with, then his children are doing it with his grandchildren, starting them off in these little businesses like duck eggs or raising a little bit of vegetables. And it's really good because it kind of trains them on not only how to work, but how to kind of be your own businessman or woman in some cases. Yeah. Which, I mean, not only is that good teaching for the kids, but it also gives you an idea, where is this kid at? some people are really not cut out to be their own boss. They may be great
Right.
people, but they could not be their own boss to save their life. And something like
Right.
that gives you the opportunity to kind of see if they're capable of doing it themselves or if they're better in a supporting role or as a good employee.
Right, exactly.
And I mean, that's
Exactly.
one of the nice things about farm life is that you have the freedom to do that for your kids. Or apparently, if you're the king and queen of England, you can also do that for your kids.
That's right. Yep.
So,
Yeah, no, I think...
no, go on.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, like you were saying, there needs to be a healthy work-life balance, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Also a healthy, when raising kids, a healthy work ethic training, I'll call it.
Mm-hmm.
I know one thing for me is I would definitely like to be in the side of, work, provide for my family, and take care of my family, but not work myself to death to where my family is neglected.
Absolutely.
I think that's one major thing that, of course, when I was younger and single and not married, it was, I'll work all the time.
Exactly.
I don't really care. I remember, when I was first starting out with a few acres that my dad had, and going down the road of starting my own farm, it was, I got nothing else to do. I might as well just keep working. And so it was all week long, all day long. When the sun was up, I was out working, and it was no big thing for 70-hour work weeks in the summer, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, well, if I'm going to get it working, I better do it now. So when I do get married and start having kids, I don't have to be doing crazy hours like this.
Absolutely. I mean,
So
that's a very good way of looking at it. I mean, I'm still single, and I do my utmost to fill every minute with some kind of productive, even if it's not physically working. I'm trying to read a book, I'm trying to work on a podcast, I'm trying to write a questionnaire, I'm trying to fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run.
right.
And that's what you're supposed to do kind of at this age of my life. So you don't have to do it once you're starting to have a family, you're married, you have kids. I mean, I look at my father, the moment he steps through the house, he has to put on his parent hat. He has to
Right.
raise these kids. And if
Right.
you're putting your brain on and going work, even when you're back at home, you won't end up instilling a love of work in your children because they'll just think of it as the thing that took away their family. Again, this is just the speculation of someone who does not have children and is a young semi-workaholic. So, yeah, no, just take it for what it's worth.
Right.
Okay, so we talked about before on your first interview, what if there was a difference in seeing the completion of our work and how that kind of just, it fills us that good fuzzy feeling to see a cow go from small cow to big cow, small chicken to dinner, turkey to Thanksgiving. Right. Do you think that ability to see the completion kind of affects the way that we work?
Yes, I would say for me, very much so. I would say, from a very young age, that's how, you could say, mind worked. Mm-hmm. Was I'm definitely the type where I have to start a job and see it come to completion to feel like, one, I guess say I earned my paycheck.
Exactly.
And also, just my makeup is I like to do it in a timely fashion. Mm-hmm. So if I have a project I'm working on, I will put a deadline, give myself a deadline to where even if no one puts a deadline on me, I'll put a deadline on me because I want to see this project end, and then I go on and start another project. And that's how I think from a young age where it was going and, hey, you got to go out and you got to take this route and paint propane tanks out in the country, and you got to make sure you do this number. And at the end of the day, it's like, hey, I got 10 or 12 done in one day. I think I did pretty good today. So mm-hmm. I think from a young age, it was instilled in me that, that's just what you do, and that's how I I guess you'd say enjoy working that way.
Now, one of our main points on the show is going to be to offer these little tidbits of farm life and our ideas and ideology, our philosophy on it, and kind of give them an idea of how they can apply this. Because sure, we've just spent all this time talking about work. Well,
right.
What is this about what we're talking about that the average Joe can just go out and start applying to their life and how they consider work? Any ideas?
Yeah, I think one big thing that for me especially, and I can only speak from myself and my experience in life with having a 2-year-old son, what I'm going to do as he grows up, I think for me, when I wake up in the morning, I have a purpose for what I need to accomplish that day. It's not a thing of I just live my life day in and day out. When I wake up, I see my wife, I see my son, and I know, okay, so this is what my day, my day is, going to be achieving in the bigger picture is taking care of them. The smaller picture would be going to work, doing my job, and finishing projects and accomplishing things. And so I think for, someone, to apply to their life is, when you wake up in the morning, do you feel like when you get up, you're ready to take on the day and achieve something? Or do you feel like when you wake up, I wish I could stay in bed? Now, all of us, every once in a while, we're going to have those mornings where it's like, I wish I could just stay in bed today. I don't need to get up.
Just roll back over. The sun isn't up yet.
Yeah, that's right. And so I think one big thing is find something in your life that you want to achieve, strive for, or build towards. So, find something that you can accomplish in your life. That if, put some goals down on a piece of paper and find ways to accomplish those. That gives you, for me especially, that gives me eagerness to get on with my day. I will say I'm a creature of habit, so I have a routine that I do in the morning. I don't even purposely do it, but I have a habit that I go through, and I like to get up and I like to read scripture and eat breakfast, get myself together, and head off to work. And it's one of those things where it's like, as I'm getting up and going for the morning, I'm preparing myself as, what am I going to achieve today, and what is my long-term goal in my achievements? And, right now in my life, a lot of it is my long-term goal is taking care of my family and providing for them so that, I can be around and enjoy, watching my son grow up and not have to, work like crazy, but have a good work-life balance.
Absolutely. I know for me, if I offer advice on work, it'd have to be define your definition of work for most people. Because a lot of people, they look at work as, oh, I go in, I just punch the paycheck, and then I leave.
Right.
Which is fine if you have to do it that way. But you should really try to make it so that your work is your passion. Now, not everyone can do that, but when your work is something that's a part of you, like on the farm, it is our life. It's the thing that we put all of our energies into because that's our hope, that's our investment. It makes a difference in how you do it. You care about more.
Right.
My father often talks about the difference between if you just have an employee who's there to punch the paycheck, the time card in the morning, and then to leave, they're never going to do the work like someone who actually cares. If at all possible, try to care about your work, not to a point of unhealthy levels, but to the point where you're doing a good job. If you'll be surprised that if you actually care about what you do and it matters to you, you'll do it better, more efficiently, quicker. And you know what? Your boss is going to be amazed that you actually give a crap about X, Y, or Z. Because most people surrounding you, your fellow employees, they won't care as a general rule of thumb. And so you're immediately going to be different than everyone else. And they're going to see that you care. Right. And that could open other doors of opportunities. Now, they may not care that you care. That's sometimes the way life goes. But you may find that you'll actually enjoy your job more and find it more fulfilling.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Well, Aaron, as we wrap things up here, is there anything you'd like to share with the audience?
I would say one thing is, I definitely want people to take away the fact that, from this episode is that I'm not preaching workaholic at all. That's the one thing I definitely strive not to be is, workaholic. It's try to find something that, like you're saying, you can be passionate about in your work, or if you do have to go and punch a time clock and then come home, find something at home that you can be passionate about and do. Because, I feel like we're here on this earth to take care of it, to achieve things for, a greater good, I guess you could say. Not to just punch a time clock.
Yep.
And we're here to, make the world a better place because of who we serve in the bigger picture of things. So I think the biggest thing to take away is that, find something that you can be passionate about and something that you want to achieve in life.
Good thoughts. Now, where can people find out more about Crestwood Family Farms and your work there?
Yeah, definitely. The best place is our Facebook is Crestwood Family Farms on Facebook, but then also our website to where you can look up products and what we do on the farm and how we raise things is crestwoodfamilyfarms.com. And we have, pictures of the farm, and now with spring coming, we'll do some more updates to it for when you can order beef, especially, and some pork this coming fall. So have some updates on that on the website. But then stay, close with the Facebook page because we'll have some pictures on there of as things start growing and things start ramping up on the farm.
Well, all right, Aaron, thank you very much for being on the show. Thanks for coming back on the show even after this first time, and we did a great job. I have only 2 quarters in the Soliton jar right now, so I'll give myself a pat on the back. Saved a little bit of money. And thank you, everyone, for listening to our 3rd episode. Please be sure to subscribe to us on Stitcher, SoundCloud, iTunes, of course, and leave a review. Tell us who you'd like to see on the show, and tell us what a great job Aaron's doing at home and not being a workaholic. And we again want to reiterate, we are not supporting being a workaholic.
That's right.
All right. Thank you, Aaron, and have a great day. Yep. Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this 3rd podcast episode, please go and follow Aaron and Crestwood Family Farms on Facebook. Take a look at their website, follow what they're doing. They have some great ideas, great products. As always, I'm Terrence Leahy. This has been the Intellectual Agrarian Podcast. Let's keep farming the dream.